I'm going to just go over this final exam version 3, and that's it for today, okay? So as I just go through these, if you have your calculator out, try to follow along, and if you have any questions, please ask in the chat box. Okay, so we have number 1, where we have to simplify the radical expressions. So like I said, these kinds of problems, I don't want you to waste any time. Just do it on the calculator, and that's it, right? But you know, those, especially those going to math 6, you should know how to do this by hand. So I'll do it by hand, you do it by calculator for now. So 8 radical 10 you can't simplify. 3 radical 360 you can, right? So that's 3 radical 36 times radical 10, right? So that gives me 3 times 6 radical 10, which is 18 radical 10, right? And we have 8 radical 10 plus 18 radical 10 are like radicals, so you get 26 radical 10. Okay. Number 2, we have to distribute, but I also noticed that this radical 3 is what's being distributed. I can see this as a radical 3 times radical 7 is radical 21. So when I distribute this radical 3, I get 3 radical 7 plus 5 times 3. So this is 3 radical 7 plus 15. Okay, any questions? The first two? Okay, number 3 is another easy one. Remember, because of our, oh no, did not mean to do that. Because of our properties of laws of radicals, right? You can actually write this as one radical. It's basically 2 times 70 over 5. So I can see that this cancels out, right? The 5 divides into the 70, right? So this is 1 and this is 14. And in the end, you get radical 2 times 14. But I can see 14 as 2 times 7. So now that I have these factors, I can see radical 2 and 2 give me 2 radical 7. So that's C. I forgot to circle number 2. All right, number 4. This one you can't do on the calculator. Actually, in fact, let me circle the ones that you can do on the calculator. That way, you should recognize it when you see it on the exam, right? Okay, so out of the first page, okay, from the first page, the ones you can do by calculator, I'm going to circle with green, okay? So that's number 1, number 2, number 3. All right, so number 4 and 5 you're going to have to do by hand. So let's do those and then I'll move on to the next page. Okay, we have the laws of exponents here. So I'm just going to draw a fraction bar. 15 over 5, right? That's 3. And then I have x to the 8th over x cubed. That's x to the 8 minus 5 is x to the 5th. And the y's, I have to kind of do this first, the numerator first, right? Y to the 7 times 4 is 28 over y to the negative 17. So that's basically addition, right? Because you got 28 minus negative 17 is y to the 45. So this is y to the 45. All of this is over 1. So that gives me B as the answer choice. For number 5, you have you have to add the exponents for the x, right? So x to the negative 9 plus negative 6 plus 15. So I see negative 9 and negative 6 is negative 15 plus 15 gives me x to the 0, right? So my coefficient here is 3 times x to the 0. We know x to the 0 is equal to 1. So it's 3. Just 5. Number 5 is just 3. Any questions with that? Okay, so that was like a little curveball there. Alright, moving on. Let's move to number 6. Oh, someone joined us. Oh, no, they didn't. Alright. What is all that noise? Okay, I guess I gotta start recognizing those tones. I don't know what they mean for the Discord. Anyway, number 6. We can't necessarily do this on the calculator. So let's do it by hand. First, we have to distribute and remove parentheses. So I have 11x squared minus 20x. I like to write it from highest to lowest power if they're already not written that way. And then distribute this minus sign, right? So we got plus 5x squared. So I can line it up like this as well, as we learned from the last class. We got plus 6x and minus 6. And we can do this so we can add vertically, right? So 11x squared plus 5x squared is 16x squared. Negative 20x plus 6x is minus 14x. And 9 minus 6 is positive 3. So I can see that the second answer, choice B, is the correct answer. Number 7 is distributive property, right? So we have to distribute every term here. We got 4x times x squared is 4x cubed. 4x times 3x is positive 12x squared. Then we have 4x times 2 is plus 8x. Then we move on to the negative 5. Negative 5 times x squared is negative 5x squared. So I'm going to write it vertically with the correct like terms. Negative 5x plus 3x is minus 15x, and then negative 5 times 2 is minus 10. So I did that so I can add vertically. All the like terms are lined up. Easy to see, right? So I get 4x cubed. 12x squared minus 5x squared is positive, so plus 7x squared. Then we have minus 7x minus 10. And I see that this, let's see here, the C, right? C is the correct answer. Any questions with that? Okay. For number 8, I believe you can do this on the calculator, but I'm not entirely sure, because I don't have your model calculator. So try it out, and if not, then you should still know how to do it by hand anyway. So but remember, you're dividing by a polynomial by a monomial. That means it's just taking the monomial and dividing it into every single term in the numerator. So in the end, or what it's going to look like is this. You're basically doing this if you look at it separately, right? Negative 10x to the 9th over negative 2x to the 5th and negative 4x to the 5th over negative 2x to the 5th. Right? If you look at it individually, that's what it looks like, right? So negative 8 over 2 is negative 4. X to the 20 over x to the 5th is x to the 20 minus 5 is 15. So that takes care of the first term. Negative 10 over negative 2 is positive, so plus 5. X to the 9 over x to the 5 is x to the 9 minus 5 is 4. Then the last term. Negative 4 over negative 2 is positive 2, so plus 2. X to the 5th over x to the 5th is x to the 5 minus 5. That's 0. X to the 0 is equal to 1, right? As we know, x to the 5th can just cancel out with x to the 5th as well, as long as x doesn't equal 0, right? So our final answer is negative 4x to the 5th plus 5x to the 4th plus 2, B. Very good. All right, number 9 is a factoring problem. I told you all of these factoring problems, there are many of them on this test, and most of these you can't use a calculator. Okay, so let's take a look at number 9. For number 9, I look for the GCF, right? The GCF is what you factor whenever possible. So I see 5y, right, divides into both of them. That's the GCF. So 5y, and what do we get? We get 9x squared minus 4y squared. All right, so that means we got 5y, and then this is a difference of squares. I hope you recognize these difference of squares really easily now. So it's 3x plus 2y times 3x minus 2y. Okay, does anyone have questions with that one? Right, so make sure you double check. It's not answer B, right? As you see, it's going to be answer A. Okay, number 10. We have 2x squared plus 11x plus 9. We have to find which of these answer choices is a factor. So we just have to factor, right? So like I talked about in the last test, I said you can factor using the trial and error method or the AC method, right? And I said the trial and error method, once you master it, is faster most of the time. Okay, so I'm going to do it that way, but I'll also show you the AC method because AC method utilizes something called factor by grouping later on, which you use to do number 11. So let's do the trial and error first. So how do you get 2x squared, the first term, right? So anytime you have a quadratic, right, that you're factoring, the first term is the first of each factor. So how do you get a product of 2x squared? It's by multiplying 2x and x, right? And then we look at our last term, which is 9, and look at the factors of 9. That's the second factor of each of these factors, or second term of each of these factors, rather. All right, so I can do 1 and 9, or 3 and 3, right? And the position also matters too. It could be 9 and 1. Now, what I'm supposed to look at is the sum of the products of the outer and the inner. Okay, if you look at the product of the outer and the product of the inner, yeah, they have to add up to this middle term here. Okay, so let's say I did 9. If I had done 1 and 9, you can see how the outer is 18x, right? Here, I'll write it in for now, but it's not the correct. You're gonna see it's not the correct answer. See, if I did 1 and 9, you see how it's 18x plus 1x is 19x. That's not it, right? Even if I flip these terms, let's see what you get. You get 9 and 1, right? What is this? This is 2x plus 9x, and you see how this adds up to 11x? So that's how I know this is the correct order, right? If I had done 3x, right, you're going to see 2x plus, I'm sorry, not 3x, I meant 3 and 3. You're going to get these factors and look at the outer and the inner. This would have given you 6x plus 3x, right, is 9x. So as you can see, it's not the correct answer. So that's how you can go through all of these factors and check. That's why it's called the trial and error method, right? But as you practice them, you'll be able to find the outer and the inner quickly in your head, and you don't have to write these numbers down. And you'll see, oh, okay, 2x plus 9, x plus 1. As I look at the answer choices, there's no x plus 1, but there is a 2x plus 9. Okay, so now let's try the AC method. So the AC method, you have to write from, make sure all the like terms are combined. So it's in the ax squared plus bx plus c form, right? So that you get a is equal to 2, b is equal to 11, and c is equal to 9. Then you do a times c, which is 2 times 9 is equal to 18. Factors of 18 that add up to 11. So it's actually 2 and 9, right? 2 plus 9 adds up to 11. So this represents the middle term. These two break 2x and 9x add up to the 11x. So that's what I did to replace 11x now. So 2x squared plus 2x plus 9x plus 9. So now the 11x is gone, in its place is 2x plus 9x. Now you can factor by grouping at this point. So you split them up into two different groups, right? So in this first group, you see the GCF is 2x, right? If you factor out 2x, you get x plus 1. And then in the second group, the GCF is a positive 9. This leading coefficient is a 9. So you factor out a positive 9, and you get x plus 1. And then you see the common binomial factor of x plus 1. And then the other factors are the remaining, 2x plus 9. And there you have it. That's the AC method. So again, practice that one because you can use it for the next problem. So in this next problem, you see a polynomial with 4 terms. And usually those are the ones that they test you to factor by grouping. So again, look at the first group and look for the GCF. So for the numerical coefficients, there's no common factor besides 1, right? And then for the variables, there's c. So I'm going to factor the c out, and I get 6w plus 5z. For the second group, you see how the leading coefficient is a negative? So you have to factor out a negative there. So it's actually negative 5, and the variables are d. So what do you get for the remaining factor? It's 6w plus 5z. Okay, so as you can see, the common binomial factor in both terms is 6w plus 5z. And what's the remaining? It's c minus 5d, right? C minus 5d. So that's answer choice B. Okay, there you have it. So none of those you can do by calculator. So out of the first 11 questions, you can only use the calculator on the first 3. So hopefully there are more calculator questions coming up. Let's see. Number 12. Okay, that's a non-calculator question. We have to translate this into an algebraic equation, right? So 76 is, right? Is my equal sign. So I'm going to write 76 equals 40 subtracted from. So subtracted from means you take this and you subtract it from this number, right? This entire number. So 3 times the number is 3 times m, right? M represents my number. And then from 3m, I'm subtracting 40. Okay, so that's what we get. And that is answer choice D. Okay, number 13 looks like a calculator problem, right? This is your number solver, I believe, right? Or equation, I forget what it's called. Not number system, number solver. Do you know what it's called on your calculators? Can you double check for me? So on this one, you can just do whatever that solver is, right? And type in each side of the equation, right? So on the equal sign, this would be your left-hand side, right? And then this would be your right-hand side. So you could just type those in and solve it, which is pretty simple then, right? But we have to also know, for those continuing on to math 6, how to do this by hand, right? So I like to multiply by the LCD. The LCD in this case for 6 and 10 is 30. Okay, so I'm going to multiply all the terms by 30. So I have 30 times x plus 9 over 10 is equal to 30 times x plus 3 over 6, and then plus 30 times 3 over 10. Okay, notice I kept all the signs there, like this plus there, right? Okay, let's see what happens here. Remember, this is multiplication. This is 30 over 1, right? So I see that the 10 goes into the 30 3 times. The 6 goes into this 30 5 times. And this 10 goes into this 30 3 times. So now we have, over here on the right, I have 3 times x plus 9 is equal to 5 times x plus 3 plus 3 times 3. This is much easier now that the fractions are all cleared out. So let's distribute and figure out what x is. So I have 3x plus 27 is equal to 5x plus 15 plus 9. So let's combine these like terms a bit, clean it up. Nothing on the left-hand side, but on the right I have 5x plus 24. So it looks like I can, this is a one variable equation, I can solve for x, right? So make sure all the x's are on the left-hand side, non-x's are on the right-hand side. So I'm going to subtract 5x on both sides. So I get negative 2x is equal to, and then subtract 27 to both sides. 24 minus 27 is negative 3. And then lastly, we divide both sides by negative 2, and we get x is equal to positive 3 over 2. And that gives us answer choice C. Not bad, right? Okay, it looks like number 14 is a calculator question as well. You can do that on the calculator. Let's see here. Let's do this purple ink here. Okay, so again, type it into the calculator and get the answer, or distribute. So we got 3x minus 53 is equal to negative 6x minus 8. So this is the same problem as the previous, right? Except without the fractions. So let's gather the x's to the left. So I'm going to add 6x to both sides. So I get 9x is equal to negative 8 plus, so negative 8, you have to add 53, right? So we get 45. Divide both sides by 9. X is equal to 5. So that's answer choice D. Okay, fortunately, number 15 is also on your calculator. You could do on your calculator. Let's see here. Yeah, you could type this as a system solver, right? I forget what it's called there. System solver. And it's a 2 by 2, right? The 2 by 2. So you can do that. All right. Otherwise, you would have to do it by hand. Okay, so if we did it by hand, I see that the answer choices are all y is equal to, right? So that means I'm gonna have to cancel out the x's on this system here to save me some time. Does that make sense? So solve for the other variable for whatever. I mean, cancel out the other variable if the answer choices are y. Okay, it'll save you a little bit of time that you can use for the other questions. All right, so let's take a look here. So I have for the x's, since I'm trying to cancel out the x's, I see there's a 1x in the numerator here and a negative 3x. So the LCM, right, is 3, right? So I have to multiply this numerator, not the numerator, the first equation by 3, right? And by doing that, I actually get 3x plus 12y is equal to negative 48. Okay, and then the second equation I can leave alone because it's already a 3 or a negative 3, right? Okay, so now I can add vertically, and you see how the 3x's cancel out, right? The 3x minus 3x is a 0x, right? Then we have 12y minus y is 11y, which is equal to negative 48 minus 7 is negative 55. Okay, now we can divide both sides by 11, so negative 55 over 11 gives me negative 5. So we can circle C as our answer. Notice we don't even have to solve for x here, right? Normally, we do solve for x, right? Because the solution of a system is the point of intersection of these two equations, correct? And in a point, it's an ordered pair. We have the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate. But in this multiple choice question, we don't have to. All right. So number 15 was a calculator question. Moving on to 16 and 17. All right, 16 is non-calculator. You have to solve for y, right, which is on the right-hand side. So first thing we do is any addition subtraction. I'm going to do z minus 9x to get the y by itself, and then divide both sides by 3, right? So that way we have y is equal to z minus 9x over 3. So z minus 9x over 3 is b. That was easy. All right, number 17. This one is actually a calculator question. You can do this as a poly solver, right? So take a look at that. But otherwise, it's a quadratic equation, right? So quadratic equation, the way you solve those, you have to first set it equal to 0. So I got x squared plus 15, right? So let me actually subtract the 8x on both sides. So minus 8x plus 15 is equal to 0, right? And now we can use any of the methods we know to solve a quadratic, right? We can either factor, which is the preferred method, or you could complete the square, which is the long way of doing it, or you could use the quadratic formula, right? Which works for all quadratic equations. So I'm going to factor because that's the easiest way. So this comes out to x minus 5, x minus 3 is equal to 0. And then using the 0 factor rule, right, or the 0 product rule, you got x minus 5 is equal to 0, and, right, or x minus 3 is equal to 0. Solve for x, we add 5, we get x is equal to 5, or x is equal to 3. So 5 or 3 is C. Okay, not bad at all. So that's the first page. That took 28 minutes. Oh, it's the third page, sorry. Up to the third page took 28 minutes. We are almost done. Okay, we have a right triangle, and we have to solve for the missing side of this right triangle. This should be pretty easy if you remember the Pythagorean theorem, right? So let's say the Pythagorean theorem is leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared, right? Or in other words, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? A and b are the legs, c is the hypotenuse. But in this case, we have the leg here is 6 squared plus the other leg is 6 squared is equal to x squared. So if we take the square root of both sides, we get x. So what is that? This is 36 plus 36 is equal, square root of that is radical 72, right? And in this one, it's 36 times 2, as you can see from the 36 plus 36, right, is equal to 6 radical 2. That is answer C. Any questions there? Okay. So we're like just going right pretty quickly here. Um, but yeah, if there's anything you're not getting, please ask. So that means part of this you can do on the calculator, right? Part of this. So I'll just underline it. Number 19. I don't believe you can do the inequalities on the calculator. So we're going to have to just solve this inequality by hand. So let's do that. So we have, I'll do this. Bring the x's to the one side. It's a one variable inequality. So I'm going to add x to both sides. So if I add x, I get negative 4x, right? And then subtract 5 to both sides. So 13 minus 5 is 8. So now I'm actually going to divide both sides by this negative 4. And remember, when you divide by a negative or multiply by a negative for inequalities, the inequality sign flips, it changes, right? So this greater than becomes a less than. 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2, right? And as you can see, it's an open circle at negative 2, and less than means to negative infinity. So it's answer choice A. Very good. So next time, I hope you have number 4 completed, version 4 completed. That way you know what you did right or wrong, and you can actually ask questions, right? Okay, let's continue on. We have, oh, we lost someone. That's okay. I'm sure technical difficulties, right, when we're dealing with these online things. All right, so we have this is from way back in early, like the first or second week of school even, right? So we have an expression where we have to substitute these values, right? So let's substitute this in properly. We have b, which is 4, times a is negative 5. So I'm going to use parentheses around that negative, plus negative 5 parentheses squared, right? Plus 4 squared times negative 5. So this gives me negative 20 plus 25, right? And then we got plus 16 times negative 5. That's negative 80 right there. So I have negative 20 plus 25. Here, let me write it down here. Plus 25 minus 80. So I see the negatives add up to a negative 100 plus 25. That's negative 75. D. Okay, so honestly, this is a calculator problem too. You can just do that, type that in. But you have to use parentheses around the negatives, otherwise you're going to get the wrong answer, right? Because as you remember, I hope you remember, I've talked about this many times, right? If I do negative 2 squared, like this is minus 4, or negative 4. But negative 2 in parentheses squared is equal to negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Right? So because of that, right, using the order of operations, the calculator will follow the order of operations. Okay, so please be careful. Okay, number 21. We've done so many of these. I hope it's still somewhere in your brains, right? Okay, so we have to graph this two variable linear equation. So remember, most of these problems that they give you on the final, you can do it by finding the x and y intercepts. And the way you do that is by substituting 0 for either one, right? Or I like to do the cover-up method. Remember how I showed you can cover up whichever one's 0? And like for example, if x is equal to 0, 3 times 0 is 0. So I cover up the 3x, and I have negative 6y is equal to 18, right? So let me do that over here. So 3 times 0 minus 6y is equal to 18. So I'm basically covering up the 3 times 0. So I only have negative 6y is equal to 18 that I'm looking at. So when you divide by negative 6, you get y is equal to negative 3. So the ordered pair for this is 0, negative 3. Then I do the other one. 3x minus 6 times 0 is equal to 18. So I can cover up the 6y, the minus 6y. So all I'm really looking at is the 3x is equal to 18. Divide by 3, we get x is equal to 6. So this ordered pair is 6, comma 0. Okay, is that familiar? That cover-up method that I talked about or showed you in class? All right, so now that we have our ordered pairs, I'm going to look and see which graph has 0, negative 3, and 6, 0. And as you can see, in answer choice B, we have 0, negative 3 down here, 6, 0 over there. So that is our answer. Answer choice B. Okay? Any questions? All right. Last page and we're done. All right. This one, you could do parts of it on the calculator, but most of it is you just have to remember what to do, right? So the equation of a line, right, most of the time it's going to be in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, right? And the slope formula is what? If you have two ordered pairs, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm going to label this as x1, y1, x2, y2. That way we can keep our information organized. So first thing we need to do is find the slope. So the slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that gives me 23 plus 4 is 27 over 7 plus 2 is 9. 27 over 9 is equal to 3. Everyone got that? Now that we have the slope, I can substitute it with the y, the m, and the x to solve for the b. Okay? So let's use a different color here. I'll use this purple here. All right, so y, so I'm going to use the first order pair. The numbers are just smaller, okay? So negative 4 is y is equal to m, which is 3, times x, which is the negative 2, plus b. So negative 4 is equal to negative 6 plus b. So if I add 6 to both sides, I get positive 2 is equal to b. So what is my final answer? Y is equal to 3x plus 2. That gives me answer choice B. All right. Number 23, I told you the vertical line is the x, right? X is equal to, right? X is the vertical line. Vertical line is the x coordinate, which is, and then it's x, the equation is x is equal to the x coordinate. And then for the horizontal line, it's y is equal to the y coordinate, negative 9. Right? So since they're asking for the vertical line, it's x is equal to 10. That was easy. You just have to remember it. All right, last two problems are also non-calculator. Let's see here. We have an equation in standard form, which we have to change to slope-intercept form, right? That's the only way we can get the slope in the y-intercept. So we have to solve for y here. So I'm going to subtract 7x to both sides. Okay? So I have negative 9y is equal to negative 7x minus 27. Then we divide both sides by negative 9. So we have y is equal to negative 7 over negative 9 is positive 7 over 9x. And then negative 27 over negative 9 is positive 3. So as you can see here, the slope is the 7/9, and the b, right, the y-intercept is 3, so it's 0b, which is 0, 3. So that is answer choice B. Any questions there? Okay, last question for the day. What is the slope of this graph here? So I told you all you have to do is find the obvious points and count. So I see negative 6, 0. I don't see any obvious points until I get to 0, negative 5. So I have to count. I'm going to go down, up or down first, and then right. Okay? So I have to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, and then I have to go across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So down 5 and right 6. So the slope is equal to, oh, that's a terrible M. The slope is equal to the change in y, so it's down 5 over the change in x, which is right 6. That is the slope. And as you can see there, it's answer choice D. Okay. Do you have any questions with this final exam or this sample final exam? All right, so now you've seen 3 versions of these. I want you to try the 4th one, and we'll go over it for the next class.